Hey, everybody, it's week 9 of ModPo. We're at the Kelly Writers House at the University of Pennsylvania, and I've had a combination of accidental caffeine and what did we have, James? And brandy. This is a bad combination. So I'm going to say, Selena is impressed. I'm going to say hello to everybody, and then we're going to get started on week 9. Anna, hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm a little nervous
You
now.
You should be.
Yes.
Fasten your seatbelts. Did you?
Right.
Yeah. Did you put some extra coins in the meter?
I did.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And we have here, sitting to my right, a dear, dear friend, brilliant poet, brilliant critic, and a founder of the Kelly Writers House back in October 1995. He was here, I believe, the very first night. It was actually Saturday, and the lights, they'd turned the electricity off of the old house. And so once it got dark, we had no way of lighting things. I think we may have lit candles. And we talked well into the night about the Writers House, and here it is.
And we were in a circle right over
We
there.
were in a circle in the living room, yeah. We didn't use this room. We didn't know what to do with this room. Anyway, this is Joshua Schuster, associate professor at a distinguished Canadian university called Western University, as in Western Ontario.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Josh.
Thanks. Hi.
How are
everybody.
you?
Good.
He's the best, and this is he's a special guest tonight, so we're glad you're here.
Thanks.
And Lily Applebaum.
Hello.
Hi. And Erica Kaufman. If I had $1 for every time your name was mentioned today, we had a very busy day, I'd have about $5 or $6. I could buy some more caffeinated coffee.
Please don't.
What's Wait, what's happening there? Who's that? Whoa! Wow, Erica. What's the name of this dog?
This is Lola.
Hey, Lola. That's great. Okay, we also have Dave Poplar, I believe. Dave?
How's it going?
Hi, Dave. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Great. And I believe Molly is on the line as well. Hey, Moll.
Hi, I'm here. My dog's here too, but he's sleeping.
Oh, we're boring him already. This is great. We have a lot of dogs around. We also have Jason here. Hello, Jason. And he doesn't have a mic, but we'll get him a mic. And we have Austin and Sophia and Selena. And we have James Sherry here, who's going to be here for a little bit before he has to catch a train to go back to New York. If you get the camera on James, I just want to say something. He's a poet who has there he is. Hey, James, wave to the crowd. So James is here from New York. James is the author of 13 books of poetry, just that, and he is also the founder of Roof Books. And Roof Books has published many, 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 many of the poets that you admire, that people admire in this course, many of them. And he also created the Segway Foundation, which in New York has kind of been the host organization for a series of readings over the years since 1977. And the number of events that Segway Foundation has sponsored, take a guess, over the years, the number of events, take a guess, Anna?
Ooh, 432.
432. Lily?
1,000?
1,000. Austin?
I'll go lower, 100.
Okay, the answer is 10,000 plus. So, snaps for James Sherry, who's made a huge impact on the poetry world. I think I caught up with everybody. A couple of announcements, then we'll get started. The phone is 610-616-3208. We're giving away 2 books, the first caller and the second caller. So, the first book we're giving away, Adelaide, how are you doing? Look, Adelaide behind the camera. Yeah, Zach is retiring today, so Adelaide has been around. It's a little out of focus, though, Adelaide. You got some work to do here. Okay. I'm moving this around. Come on, Adelaide, keep up with me. Okay, it's The Poetry of Disturbance, David Bergman's book, and it's about post-war American poetry. That will be for one person. And then, don't go away, Adelaide.
Valley
Julia
Fever.
Block's fantastic book about the Sacramento area and other places, Valley Fever. We're giving that away. Thank you. Keep it there, Adelaide. Got some shout outs for some. Every week I receive books of poems written by ModPo people. This is A.J. Wagoner. Everybody remembers A.J. Wagoner, one of our CTAs. This book is called My Hope Eternal. And there's a book by Gene Grabiner, who's a ModPo person. All Eyes Are Upon Us, a very radical, as in left-wing radical book that I just read a couple nights ago. A couple more. Anthony Watkins, who's a favorite regular, has been editing editions of poetry. Many of the authors that appear here are ModPo people, and it's called Better Than Starbucks. That's the series, and this is the May 2018 issue. And one more, Pana Naik, who is a Writers House person, a ModPo person, and was a staff member at our library here at Penn for many years, is a fine poet, and this is her newest book, The Astrologer's Sparrow. So glad to shout those out. Okay, couple shout outs, and then we're going to move on. The first shout out is to Willard Strindberg. So Willard, many of you will remember Willard from last year. Willard's a regular. He's back. He says he did part of ModPo about a year ago. He had to leave after week 8. Here we are, week 9, and he's back. So he very dutifully continued where he left off. Josh was asking me before, what about the people who don't finish? And I went, finish? People don't finish ModPo. They just kind of hang out, and that's what Willard is doing. Anyway, Willard's plan is to form a local group through his local library to participate in the current ModPo offering, right? So the plan was for each to individually participate and then weekly meet at the Writers House, kind of like their own local webcast, except face-to-face. So he wants to form a group for the Slow-Po season, which is soon as after November 19th. We go into Slow-Po mode until next September. And that's what he wants to do. So I unfortunately don't know where Willard is. It might not be appropriate for me to say without his permission where he is. But if you see an announcement by Willard looking for you to join his group, please respond if you want to. 2 more shout-outs. Sophia Nas, who called in last week, who has a particular opinion on the midterm elections. And she did she was very anxious about, this was, I knew this through Facebook, but also through the ModPo forums, very anxious about the election, which took place in the United States last night, as most people know. And she did a mesostic where the spine text is vote, 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 vote. And the feeder text, the seed text, was newspaper reports about the election. And I'll read her poem, Sophia Nas. Out fear nationalism, racial, in effort to salvage Republican of Congress, remaining 2 years of his term, Mr. Trump's invective-filled produced what may be the polarized midterm contest modern times, a way no president done since the civil, the divisions exposed and overpassed few on-house states campaign midterm rallies. And then, again, the spine. Vote, vote, vote. Snaps for Sophia Nas. So the machine helped her make that poem, which is about what this week is about. Finally, one more thing, and I'm gonna quote from Agostinos Kasamatakis. Agostinos. I'm going to quote something he wrote, and I'm going to have everybody, Google Hangouts and people at the table, respond briefly to it. Here it goes. Mesostic, says Agostinos. Mesostic. It isn't really hard per se, but in some way it's painful when someone desires an acceptable result. And he goes on to say, the final outcome doesn't please me, but sorry. So I want you all to respond to this question. Agostinos is confessing to using the machine, which can generate something that's non-intentional, and yet he admits to feeling like he can't get an acceptable result. In other words, he desires a result that the machine isn't giving him. And this is the whole thing about this week, the aleatory poetry. So Lily first, what do you say to Agostinos, who is admitting that he has a desire for an acceptable result?
I think what I want to say is that there's a difference between, and the distinction can be hard in this week, between just programming, like computer programming, creating a tool that will create poems and making poems themselves. So just because the mesostic exists doesn't mean that every single thing that gets made is like the best poem you would write. You're allowed to really truly experiment with it, and even though you might try something and like you might not like what the result is, that's okay, because those are tests of how the programming works. But then there's an actual you have an ability to choose and edit and create what you will from that as a resource.
Thank you, Lily. Fantastic practical advice to think of this as each instance of the machine producing a draft. So nothing more than that. Josh, what do you say to Agostinos?
Yeah, I like that idea of collaboration with the machine, with sort of non-human. But I feel the pain in the sense that it's a bit of a fiction to say that there's no intention going on here, or that cage. I mean, these are very cagey and mesostics. You can feel them. So selfhood does come through, and that's you can craft it too.
You've put your finger on the problem of this week's work. Really, is that it's very hard to entirely suppress the writer's ego.
Yeah.
Anna, what do you want to say to Agostinos?
I'm going to quote from a piece of advice that Jenna Osmond gave me a few years ago.
Jenna Osmond, who is herself on the syllabus.
And who I was lucky enough to have as a teacher in my MFA program 2 years ago. And I was describing a project I was working on, and it was really kind of strict, procedural, fun thing. And I was describing the project, and talking about some of the problems I was having with the work, and she said, it's okay to break your own rules.
Oh, I like that.
So that was...
Break your own rules to make something that conforms to what your desire is?
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
Cool. Let's go to Dave, then Jason, then Molly and Erica. What do you say to Agostinos? Dave?
It's really interesting about how personal forms of art like poetry are, how you put yourself as the author, the creator out there, which is great because you get for it, but you also feel the criticism even more keenly. And the thing about these types of poems, there's an intermediary, the procedure. So it's pretty interesting. If it turns out badly, at least you have some way to sort of deny responsibility. But then what happens if the machine, the procedure, the algorithm makes something even better than you could even come up with?
Yeah. No, that's always the fun thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think way back when we made the video on the number 100 in the Jackson McClough Stein poems. What's it called? Remind me.
Feather likeness of the Justice Chair.
Feather likeness of the Justice
Feather
Chair.
likeness of the Justice Chair. I think we all, in the middle of that conversation, which was truly improvised, we hadn't planned it, we all discovered that there were some lines that were just so beautiful, and we couldn't have written them. It took a machine to do it. Okay, Jason, then Molly, then Erica. What do you say to Agostinos? Hi, Jason.
Hi.
Hey, I didn't say hi to you earlier. Hello.
Hello.
I did say hi, but you didn't have the mic.
Right. Now I do. And
Okay.
I say hello.
Hello.
I would say to Agostino that, first of all, you're a reader right now, and what comes out might not be satisfying now, but I would put it away and see what you think about it another time.
I love that.
It may be exactly what you as a reader are ready for then.
Yeah, that's very cool. Thank you. Molly, what do you say to Agostinos? I hope Agostinos is watching this because he's getting a lot of feedback.
Yeah.
I liked what Dave said about there being an intermediary, and so there's a way to sort of distance oneself from ownership in terms of criticism, but then do you also not get to take the credit if it turns out really well? And I think that I'm a little bit of a purist, so I hate the idea of breaking my own rules. But at the same time, if I'm sticking by the rules, then I'm not able to like impart my, opinions on what it should look like. So I totally agree. It's super frustrating.
That's great. Thank you. And Erica, what do you think?
I would echo the breaking of the rules, which I think is part of the fun of working through machines. I would also say that there's something appealing about a selfhood that you only see via the kind of indeterminacy of mesostics and working with the machine.
Great, thank you all. Okay, so I'm going to say what the poems are. I believe someone's on the phone. Okay, so in the main syllabus, we have the Cagean mesostics and the mesostic machine. We also have a simple sample piece of what happened when Cage wrote through Ginsberg's Howl. We have the famous, because of ModPo, famous Vocabulary for Peter Innisfree Moore by Jackson McClough, which was an opportunity for him and his friends in the community downtown scene to collaborate on a kind of a group elegy for their friend Peter Innisfree Moore. Jenna Osmond's Dropping Leaflets, Bernadette Mayer's Writing Experiments, which is famous, Joan Retallack's Not a Cage, in which she wrote a poem that is constructed of the first and last lines of a bunch of books she discarded from her library. In ModPo Plus, we have a lot, but Jackson McCloug's Call Me Ishmael, in which he used a chance operation on the opening couple of pages of Moby Dick. Harry Matthews in Oulipo. Nick Montfort doesn't quite belong in Week 9, except he's sort of a computer guy, and he does a lot of super constraint alphabetical stuff, including the exhaustion of libraries, and then a couple of more Joan Retallack pieces. So there's a lot to talk about, and now let's turn to the phone. And who is it, Chris?
Oh, calling all the way from the West Coast, I believe. We have Joyce Pope.
Oh, Mama Pope. Hello, Mama Pope.
Hello.
How are you?
I would like to. We're nice and warm here. It's 70 degrees today.
Oh man. Hey, do you know what? I got two things to tell you before you ask
Tell
a
me.
question. Okay. First of all, we are going to send you. Do you already have this book? It's about your area. It's about Sacramento.
Well, then give it to me.
Okay. I will. Yeah, exactly where are you folks? You're not in Sacramento. You're nearby, right?
I'm northeast of Sacramento on the way to Reno, Nevada.
Okay.
I'm about 100 miles from Reno.
Okay, so we're going to give you this book. Lily's going to, or Chris, who's doing double duty today, is going to take your address. I think we already have it. And I'm going to ask Lily to send it to you. And actually, before, maybe you'll see Julia and have Julia inscribe it for you. Great. You know Julia from the old days.
Yes, I do.
The
Yes,
second thing I want to tell you, and Anna is going to be able to look up the date. We're coming out to San Francisco. We are going to be there in January. We're going to give you the date, and we hope anybody listening, but especially you, will you come up to San Francisco if we have a meetup?
Yes, and I'll also bring many meatballs.
Yay! Meatballs! Zach really loves your meatballs. Okay, so tender meatballs, not tender buttons, tender meatballs. Mama Pope, what's the date, Anna?
July. January 17th.
January 17th, which is a Thursday.
Yes.
We're going to have a meetup.
Sounds great.
Okay, put it in your calendar. All right, good. Did you have a comment or a question?
Yes. I'm very possessive of my words when I write a poem. And I wrote a poem based on many times and many trips to the beautiful fall colors, and I wrote the poem The Falling Leaves, which I thought was gorgeous and wonderful. And the mesostics kind of got it, but I wrote this poem. May I read it to you?
Of course. You think I'm going to say no?
Okay, it's just quick. It's called The Falling Leaves.
Okay.
Crisp, bright, purples, oranges, reds, yellows. The signs of the leaf turn has arrived. Rake leaves, jumping leaves, crunch, crunch. Under my feet, beautiful, beautiful, gorgeous, gorgeous.
Hey, snaps from Mama Pope. Thank you, Joyce.
And then the Mesostic was different.
Yeah,
it was
I bet it was.
interesting. And I used the spine called colors, and it worked out to be very interesting. I don't know if you want me to read it.
Of
or
course.
not,
No, you can't leave us hanging.
Okay. Here we go. It says leaf crisp, bright purples. Orange reds the sign of. Leaf turn arrived in under beautiful. The falling crisp, bright red yellows. The leaf turn has arrived. Rake, jump, leaves in. Crunch, crunch.
Oh, that's great. Hey, that's really good. I like
It
Under
did come
Beautiful.
out happy.
I like Under
I
Beautiful.
I did try another spine, but I manipulated it, okay? And then I thought, I'm going to try colors, and it gave me a little more juice.
Well, that's great. That's Joyce, I'm so glad after all these years you're still playing around with ModPo. That's very good.
Yeah. And also, I just want to send all my love to all of you. I'm sorry that I couldn't be with you in Philly, but you can be darn sure I'll be in San Francisco.
Okay, great. I just want, in case others don't know, Joyce has made 2 trips to the Writer's House in previous years, and in both cases brought and made tender meatballs. And oh my gosh, I'm addicted to those. So thank you, Joyce, for calling. Please tell Therese.
We love you.
Please give Therese our love, and we'll talk soon. All right.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. 610-616-3208. Wow, something cool is happening. What? I feel like dancing. Lily, did you notice in Twitter, Stephanie, who tweets at @ZStephanieStar, writes, Dog Day, ModPo Live. Post-op day 0, this little dog, and it's a picture of her little dog with a little...
I know, we're talking about everyone's dogs.
I know, things are happening on Twitter. It's great. Okay, good. So people call in. Now I have a question. So Selena, who's here, can you get Selena the mic? And Jonah, her colleague, who is not here, they wrote something for our seminar. And bye, James. Have a good trip. I want to read what they said, and I'll get some people's reactions to it, starting with Josh. Okay. Selena writes that she was happy to see the John Cage stuff about when Cage talked about how it was important to make English less understandable as a method for demilitarizing the language. And Selena thought it was an amazing point, and then she wrote, wow, I'm honestly overcome by how beautiful that is, that idea. Jonah, being a little grumpier about this, said, and he wasn't responding to Selena directly, but it's a nice counterpoint, said, do chance operations, the kind performed by John Cage, for example, really confront the problem of grammar and syntax, or do they just replace one system of rules with another? Okay, Selena, will you respond either by repeating your ecstatic response to Cage's idea, or would you respond to Jonah, or both?
Sure. I can definitely repeat my enthusiasm. I really thought it was just such a beautiful phrase, talking about demilitarizing, and it made me think a lot about equality and thinking about people who are working and living and speaking and listening in multiple languages, how we do end up mixing the languages and mixing our grammar and syntax. And it's a wonderful thing to encourage that because it's the way that so many people live and experience the world. I thought that was really beautiful to do that on purpose and to consider it a positive thing. Responding to Jonah, I definitely understand the point. I think in some ways as humans, we're addicted to rules anyways. And I think it's still, on both sides, I think it's playful, but it's also a very serious consideration that maybe we want to have some rules, and if breaking old rules and making new ones is also a source of comfort and a source of learning, I'm totally fine with that.
So you do feel, Selena, and Josh, I'm going to turn to you next. You do feel that to some degree, conventional language can be militarized. It can do violence to its receivers and hearers. You accept that premise by Cage.
Yes, I do.
Okay. So then it makes sense to try to take it apart and make it less understandable. But the downside is that people won't understand you. And isn't love and harmony and civic rest, as opposed to unrest, all about people understanding each other?
Or maybe realizing that they don't understand each other, or they can understand each other in all the ways that they want to.
Yeah, touche. Josh, what do you think of all this?
I'm struck like
You're for it, aren't
Selena.
you?
Yeah, of course. I would add that, like, understanding is one part of what a poem can do, but it's not the only part. It's just one element. So, scrambling the syntax is another element. These are just possibilities in the giant space of poetry. I don't think that, the Norman O'Brien quote I see in front of me, syntax is the army. I don't really think that, but
it's a bit of an extreme statement.
Again, syntax is just one part of how we can make poems, understand poems, and be with poems. But we get obsessed with it, and we think, we got to sort of decode the poem with, and map out its syntax. But no, you can just skip that sometimes.
I want to turn to Erica on this, and then we'll pick up the phone. I think somebody else is on the phone. Chris Martin, is that correct? Yeah. Okay. Erica Kaufman. So I take it that you like the idea pedagogically and socially that you would, particularly for non-traditional students, that you would feel like getting people past the set syntax and the set use of language is, I'm going to use the word liberationistic, anyway, leads to a certain kind of liberated thinking. And that's a very pretentious word and also potentially condescending word, and I don't mean for you to accept it, but there is a liberatory potential in breaking down language so that it doesn't make sense before you build it back up. Could you say something about your own experience as a teacher and to non-traditional students and why this seems counterintuitive? Because, and I'm sure Lily has something to say about this as well. You think people are out there trying to learn the language, and why are you making them unlearn it? Because that's kind of not fair to them. What do you think?
Well, it's interesting that you asked this because I just got home before the webcast from a really full and exciting day on campus where we were having meetings with people from around the country who teach writing. And one of the central questions was, what do we do with students who are not really comfortable or fluent in so-called academic English?
Yes.
If it's our responsibility to teach them how to write. And I was trying really hard, and I hope I succeeded, but I felt so strongly in that moment that the work that we look at this week is exactly how one teaches that. Because there's something about when the English language is completely defamiliarized and almost feels sort of wrong and perhaps nonsensical. I feel like that is when a non-traditional student might realize what they actually know and suddenly feel some kind of power over the language.
Very well put. Thank you, Erica. Lily, you ever thought about this?
Yeah, I think it's funny, I teach English for speakers of other languages, and in an ESOL classroom, even a more traditional one, oftentimes a lot of the sentences actually, even though they're grammatically, syntactically correct sentences, they're often so far removed from any context and they make no sense and they're so strange. And I can only imagine so alarming to just be looking at a textbook or whatever and understand a sentence that said I don't know, Lily owned 5 cats or whatever. It's where did this sentence come from? I don't know, it's grammatically correct, but why is it here? So, to me, something like this, obviously it would be for a more advanced learner of English in the sense that you'd need to, depending on the context, literally be able to decode what the words are, but it's not really so far stretched to say that defamiliarizing the language is already happening in a conventional ESOL classroom. We just think it's the main strategy of how to teach. But, there's nothing saying that that's less alienating or strange than something like a mesostic.
I want to turn to the phone, but just want to add one more point here, which is that, throughout this course, weeks 1 through 8, there are some moments where there's some very serious work being done. I think of week 5, for example, with the Harlem Renaissance poet. But a lot of it is finding ways to have language be pleasurable again. Mm-hmm. And Cage, who's very ethical and political, actually talks about that. What we're doing when we make language ununderstandable is we're demilitarizing it so that we can do our living. It's bewildering at first, but it's extremely pleasurable as time goes on. So it's not as if Cage is against pleasure. But at the same time, it's funny that week 9, which is the most difficult in terms of like, what the hell? Why are you studying in a course on modern contemporary American poetry? Why are you studying this stuff that doesn't make sense? Why are you using machines to distort the language? It's ugly. I don't know what's going on. There's a lot of alienation that happens during week 9. People are polite. They don't complain about it, but some people do. And interesting, like, it's at that moment that we start to feel, as Erica summarized so well, we start to feel an ethical purpose in this defamiliarization and rearrangement and relearning and seeing the oddity of the ESOL, weird sentences that are meant to teach people but actually only alienate them further. There you go. A conventional line, Lily owns 6 cats, was it?
Yeah, sure.
Like,
right. Yeah.
what the fuck? But it's conventional. But why impose that on people? Et cetera. So I just want to point out the paradox, which is that we have entered a spot in week 9 where we're kind of serious about change, potential social change. And I know Josh feels this way. I guess I sort of want to, because this afternoon we had a conversation about eco-poetics, about can poetry respond or begin to respond to the ecological disaster that we're visiting upon the planet. That's pretty serious stuff. You want to comment before we go to the phone?
Yeah, I mean, I feel, Cage would want the scrambling of that syntax to somehow be, it's clearly anarchic. It's sort of bringing everyone together in a collective way, without sort of hierarchy, in terms of the word. And he believes it models the society he wants to live in. I think that's beautiful. I don't know if it's true, but a similar desire sometimes in things like we call environmental poetry or eco-poetry, where you want to model the sort of relationship with the planet, with other beings, with humans and non-humans, and you find the syntax and the language, the line breaks that model that kind of relationship, and it's at least worth a try.
It is at least worth a try. Okay, I can't resist one more comment on this, and I apologize, but when I asked Jackson McClough, who was here, did you invite him, or was that Louis?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, you invited Jackson.
Yeah, I remember driving him around.
Jackson, wow, what a cat. But anyway, Jackson, I remember asking Jackson about this poem, Vocabulary for Peter Innisfree Moore, and he said this, something like this, and I think he's written it too. He said, Peter Innisfree Moore died. I wanted the community to mourn him. I certainly wasn't going to write an elegy for me. So I thought the best thing to do would be to bring the whole community together, all of his friends, to get up on a stage and follow this crazy pattern script. And what I realized, he said, in the performance was that this is how I wanted to live my life, that this is how I wanted people to respond to maybe my own death. This is the utopia, this performance. Once the performance was over, we go back to real reality, but it's a utopian social move. And once in a while, I have to say, sometimes, let's say here at the Writers' House, we have a conversation or something happens that kind of is spontaneous, and I think, this is the arrangement I would like. This is what we should do. This is how we can be good together. So it's really, it's crazy-ass stuff, but it's utopian, and it's fun, I think. Okay, the person on the phone's been delayed. So sorry. Who do we have, Chris?
Hey, Al. We have Sharon Wells calling.
Sharon,
Yay.
hello.
Hi.
How?
Hello.
Oh, it's good to hear from you. And where's your dog? Not very far away, right?
Yeah, he's fast asleep at the moment on our bed where he shouldn't be.
That dog, last year when we were in London, that dog kept leaping at me. Not leaping at my, can I just say leaping at my midsection? That's a polite way of referring to what he was doing. But a marvelous dog. Are you? He did. Are you on a boat?
No, I'm at home. I've been to orchestra rehearsal tonight, and we get back just about the time it started. So your webcast started,
Okay.
so it was just good timing tonight.
Do you have plans to go out for a few weeks on your boat?
We were out for 5 nights until the night before last.
Great.
Just up to Gloucester Docks, and just chilling
What
on
fun.
it.
What fun. Well, hello.
We don't stop using it through the winter. We carry on.
That's amazing. They go on canals and things, it's a little boat, so it's very cool. Anyway, Sharon, do you have a question?
It's about 35 feet.
Oh, 35 feet. It's not that little. But
It's a small narrow boat, but it's big enough to live on for 3 months at a time.
And the dog. The dog's with you.
And the dog. Oh yeah.
Oh, my gosh. That's so funny. So, do you have a comment or question?
It was a comment more than a question, just on having played some aleatoric music. And I did once take part in a John Cage piece called Atlas Ellipticalis. That it's helped me immensely with this particular week, because there's something about I was reading those notes that you linked on one of the pages about why John Cage wanted to make English less understandable. Was that
yes,
phrase
less
you used,
understandable. Yes,
and the demilitarizing of it, by not having syntax following sort of regulated lines, and it was completely liberating taking part in something like that musically. So I think I think that opened the way to wanting to experiment and reading some of those things that come up on there. Something like Writing Through Hell.
Writing Through Hell, yeah.
It's very similar. It's very similar to how if you're taking part or listening to some improvised pieces of music, the music changes every time it's played. It changes every time it's performed. It changes as things are repeated or come through again. Because with Writing Through Hell, each section, each little part as it comes through again, it'll change. And I think that feeling of not remaining the same all the time is partly what makes it exciting as well.
Yeah. What do you think when you read or hear Cage's Writing Through Howl? What's your relationship with Howl at that point? Do you hear the Ginsberg? Do you forget about the Ginsberg? Do you feel a greater connection to Ginsberg? What's happening?
I think I just it reminds me of parts of it. Parts of it seem unfamiliar, but parts of it just remind me of it. But then it makes you interpret some things slightly differently.
Yeah. Great. So, Sharon, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the people here and in the Google Hangouts to comment on the relationship that Cage has made possible to Ginsberg, and you'll listen to it offline, and then type away in the forums, and I know we'll be in touch. And when are you making the trip to Philadelphia?
At some point, definitely, I'd love to do it.
Well,
unfortunately, the very last time we came to New York was the year before I started doing ModPo. Sadly, otherwise I would have made that trip. But
come back.
At some point I will
but
definitely.
Please do not take that little houseboat across the ocean. That would be a bad idea.
No, I think it would not.
All right. Well,
we definitely need to hire a pilot.
Best to your husband. And
yes, he's dipping in and out of the aleatoric week.
Yeah, I bet. Is it John? No, what's his name?
John. Yes,
John.
it is
I had it right.
Yes,
Damn.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
John
right. Well,
and
good.
Smuggler, the
Tell
dog.
John hello, and great to talk to you.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
Take care, Sharon.
Bye.
Wow. That was fun. Okay. So, Anna first. What is the relationship to Ginsberg? So I'll read a couple of lines of it. Yeah.
I was
themselves.
gonna pull up a comment that I saw in the forums this week that I
About
thought
this?
about this that I thought did this perfectly.
Do you want to look and we can come
Yeah,
back
no,
to you?
I got it.
You got it. Okay.
So the comment that I'm looking at was dealing with the relation, like to what extent the writing through process is a reduction, and is that the right word to use? And the forum poster, I think, argues no, it's not so much a reduction as it is something else. So Mark writes, although it is a reduction of the original poem, Mazostics float the accents of the poem, which I thought was so beautiful.
Float the accents.
Float the accents.
Oh, that's very cool.
This reduction serves to take away, and at the same time, Mazostics actually add other elements in its new and raw state. The focus is on condensation.
Oh, very nice.
I thought that was great.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Dave, what, and then Jason, what, and then Sophia, what is the relationship being set up by Cage? So Cage is to Ginsberg as Howell is to this. Sorry, I got it wrong. Cage is to Ginsberg. Sorry, Ginsberg. Yeah, Cage is to Ginsberg as writing through Howell is to Howell. What is the relationship? Dave Poplar.
I don't know how to answer that. I really don't.
Okay. We'll come back. Just wave at me if you've got something. All right, Jason, what is the relationship being set up? Is there a critique or comment that's embedded, that's implied in the rewriting?
Well, one thing that it does is it takes a Whitmanian piece of writing and turn it into a Dickinsonian piece.
A real ModPo comment. I love that.
Yeah, but I think what it does is it defamiliarizes how it becomes, it's its own work, but it also is a companion work to how, where as if there was a piece of music, one picked out particular phrases. And I wanted to say one thing importantly about syntax and about the way that what Cage does allows us to kind of see constellations in Howell. I was at a poetry reading a couple weeks ago, and there was a poet whose name I can't remember, and in my office hours tonight, I'll have remembered. But she was working with writing poems in English and then rewriting them in Arabic syntax. And the change in tone and meaning was really astonishing.
If there's a way in which we can see what Cage is doing as a kind of translation. Sophia, can you get the mic? And what do you think has happened? I'll change the question just a little. What has happened to Ginsberg when Cage does this work?
Okay. So I'm going to go back to the idea of a reduction in terms of this work.
Sure.
Because I don't think reduction is necessarily the right word for the entirety of the project. It definitely, I think, reduces your field of vision. But like, for example, when you look through a microscope at something, that's reducing your field of vision to a much smaller plane, but it's expanding your understanding of the mechanisms at work because it's focusing.
Yep.
And so I think that's kind of akin to the relationship with writing through Howell and Howell itself.
That's great. Thank you so much. And thanks to Sharon for calling. Chris, do we have someone on the phone?
We do. We have Madonna calling in to ask a question or
Okay.
make a comment. I'm not sure. I didn't ask.
You didn't ask. Mandana?
Hi, Al. How are you?
Great. I'm better now that we're hearing your voice.
I bet you say that to all the callers.
I actually don't think I have said that to all the callers, but I feel it about all the callers.
I know you do. I know
yeah.
you do.
So I'm going to do some. What did I do last time you called? I screwed everything up because I didn't even let you ask a question. I asked you a question.
No. You never screw anything up. Go ahead.
You sure?
You should probably let her ask a question.
I'm sure.
She called with a question in mind, but I kind of think I want to ask. Are you okay if I ask you a question?
Of course.
Okay. So we were talking a little bit ago about the utopianism of McClo's gesture of mourning and his claim, at least to me in that conversation I had with him, which is that this is the way he wants to live his life. This was the ideal social arrangement, I think was the phrase. Do you buy that? And if you do, where do we go from here? I mean, you've done ModPo a number of times. What's the next step? You know, now that if you've persuaded yourself through ModPo that we need to do some rearranging, or that art can lead to a positive, collaborative social arrangement. What do we do next?
Boy, that's a big question.
He asks the day after election.
Right. Actually, today, and I'm probably leaving in about 15 minutes to go see Charles Bernstein's. He's going to be down at McNally Jackson. And why does that make sense with what you just said? It's been so crazy since yesterday. I'm happy about certain things, not as happy about other things. But I still find that poetry is a hedge against despair, which may not be the question that you're asking me, really.
It's okay.
But that poetry and more widely language, communication, communing is how we move forward. Mm-hmm. So to that extent, I kind of do agree with him. Now, you asked a bigger question about ModPo. I think that 7 years in, I see that we're changing language a bit. Some of the things that we talked about in the first year, we've moved on in such with so much more complexity, talking about the same topics over and over again. And I like to think that we're changing language. I was really taken with what Erica and Lily were saying earlier because I'm not a native speaker of English, and at some point I had to learn the language. And I think what we do this week is we really are pushing the boundaries of why do we think that there's only one language to be spoken? Why do we think that language is dead? Language isn't dead. It works and it moves and it has to shed its skin. Probably it's not very comfortable shedding your skin if you're a snake. I don't think molting is probably very comfortable.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it leads you further. And that's kind of what we've been doing for 7 years, whether or not that's been your intention, speaking of intention. But that is what we're doing.
Thank you. I don't know that we had any intentions. I want to turn to will you stay on the line for a bit? Or do you have, you have to go to the reading, don't you?
No, I'm fine right now.
I want to ask Molly and Dave, who've also been around all those 7 years, to characterize the possible development of the conversation, if in fact it has developed, this ModPo thing. And then what I want to do, Amanda, is turn to Jenna Osman and play the audio introduction to Dropping Leaflets.
I love that.
Yeah, it's really great. It's Jenna at her best, and she's speaking after 9/11 about what to do with all the noise in the official statements made by the U.S. leaders in Washington. And it leads her to an aleatory poem. But first, Molly, Dave, your thoughts on I don't know if you heard Mandana's comments. I think you probably did. She says that the conversation has moved If so, in what direction? Where are we now? Molly first.
I was really hoping you'd go back to Dave first.
I can go to Dave first. Dave, you first.
This reminds me of a story you once told. I think it was when I took English 88, which was like 1975 or something like that. But
it wasn't 1975.
No, Dave, it was with me. It was 2010. You and I were in the same class.
See, you caused him to freeze.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I think Molly was a TA too.
Yeah.
And Molly was the TA.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
8 years ago.
So, Al, I think you told a story, but correct me if I get it wrong, but I think you said that you were contacted by a journalist who was writing about this increased use of text speak, that the English language was being derogated. These kids today with their misspellings, and it's just a problem for people who are not going to know how to communicate anymore.
I remember.
And they wanted to contact a distinguished professor from an Ivy League university to get their commentary on this problem.
Yes.
And they contacted you, and you said, "Oh, I think it's great.
Right.
Language is evolving.
Yeah.
Great." And I had no article to write after that.
Well, guess what? Do you know who it was? You won't believe
Who was it?
Actually, Lily is going to be the most surprised. That person was not a journalist. This person was a so-called journalist on the radio, has a radio show. Her name, Laura Ingraham.
No.
Laura Ingraham, the super right-winger. Yeah, look at Dave. Laura Ingraham. She wanted me to go on the air to say how nasty and awful it is that all these kids are texting. This is 2010 or 2009. And I wouldn't. So I was live on Laura Ingraham's show for about 5 minutes. She said, well, like, the world is coming apart. These people are texting. It's ruining the language. I said, no, I think it's great. Why do you think so? Because they're writing. People are writing a lot. It's good. I want people, the best way to learn how to write is to write. And Laura Ingraham she did not want this. It was so interesting. Somewhere there's a little recording of that. My touch with the right.
Holy shit.
And I actually think it made me believe that stance, that position, had to be, therefore was a left position. That the democratization that's possible, despite the proprietariness of these devices, for sure. I mean, we got all kinds of problems with the platforms, including the Coursera platform in that sense. But what's happening there is that people are able to do a lot of writing, and I thought that was good. And she wanted the opposite thing, which is this is the end of the world, this shit. Anyway, thanks, Dave. That was kind of a nice little memory. Molly, I don't think that set you up very well, but what would you like to say?
I'll try. Yeah, I mean, I think if the poem, any of these poems, is a microcosm for the course, and the course is a microcosm for society or the world, it's become more and more political over the last 8 years or however long we've been involved in this together. And the more that we focus on and give legitimacy to this process of defamiliarizing language, of demilitarizing, of bringing up that question, who polices questions of grammar?
Yes.
The more we make it accessible to everybody, just like Lily was talking about in her ESOL classes, breaking it apart allows all of us to kind of pick up the pieces and put them together on our own one at a time. And I think that hopefully what we're doing here is creating a different system of education that's less hierarchical and more communal and collaborative.
Beautifully said. Thank you, Molly. I want to turn to Josh quickly before we listen to the Jenna audio. Josh, you've sort of been in this conversation for 23 years since the founding of the Writers' House, right? So how has this developed? This idea is fairly unusual, a kind of a academic space devoted to non-academic conversations and with non-academic people. But do you want to comment more? I know this is a favorite topic of yours.
I mean, something I worry about, but at the same time celebrate, is the classroom experience is short. It's like a tiny window in someone's life, and it's very special. It's utopian space, but it goes by fast. And how do you explode that and keep it going beyond that?
Yeah.
And the same thing is with a poem. A poem is a tiny utopian space that you read for 5-10 minutes, and then you go back to the grind. So how can you not disrupt that and make this keep going? And there's no easy answer other than just returning back to these spaces and bringing them with you where you go.
The poem is a utopian space. Josh, you're the best. That was great. Okay, Mandana, I'm going to play the Jenna piece, and then will you respond to it? Mandana, are you there? Okay, I think we lost her.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh,
I'm
good.
So sorry. No,
That's all right.
I muted myself so that there wouldn't be background noise for you. I
Oh,
apologize.
thank you. Okay, so I'm going to play the Jenna Osmond audio, the preface, and then you can respond in any way you want to it. Okay, and then we'll let you go to
Okay.
your reading. Okay, here's Jenna. Chris, are you ready? You're doing double audio. I know that's hard.
The title of this program is called Finding the Words, and I find that every day when I read the newspaper, I'm looking for words. I'm looking for the words that explain everything, and instead I keep sensing the presence of what's not being told. We know that the press is being controlled in a variety of ways. For instance, the government is pretty much the only source of information that we have. Press Secretary Ari Fleischer warns that Americans should watch what they say. Videos of bin Laden disappear because he might be sending coded messages. Recently, U.S. Representative Cynthia McKinney pointed out that voices of dissent are being ignored by the media, and she said, "Help me come up with a strategy to get through this white noise." I don't have that strategy, except to call attention to components of that white noise so we can hear it for what it is. So in the spirit of Marian Moore, who often incorporated what she was reading into her poems, I'm going to read a piece made up of words that I found when I read transcripts of press conferences given by Bush, Ridge, Rumsfeld, and Cheney in the last few days. And what I did was I read the transcripts, printed them out, I tore them up, and then I stood on a chair and I bombed my office floor with them as if they were leaflets, and the leaflets told me what to do.
That person laughing was me. Mandana, what do you think about that these years later?
Well, in a bigger sense, listening to that was really powerful because I didn't really remember it. But if we decide that there's only one way to speak, one way to think, one way to communicate, then which are the voices? Which is the content? Which are the kind of entire universes that we're not aware of, that we're negating or potentially obliterating?
Yeah. Yes.
I mean,
really well put. Yeah.
And it's so interesting listening to her now, thinking about what she was talking about politically then, and considering where we are now politically, and realizing that again, that poetry to some extent is a political act. It's an act of resistance. Whether it's cultural or literal politics or economics or anything else, it's kind of an act of resistance, and I find that I really love that.
Mandana, thank you so much for calling. Tell Charles we said hello.
I definitely will.
And have a good evening. Thanks for calling, and we'll see you soon, I hope.
Oh, definitely. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.
Okay, bye.
I was going to say, just
go ahead, Josh.
We need Jenna Osmond to write an updated dropping leaflets for us.
Yeah, I think so. I want Erica and Anna to comment on what is at stake in the last 20 minutes or so of this conversation. What's at stake? What are what's at stake? What's at risk? Erica thinks a lot about something called poethics.
That's so great because we had a question about the poethical wager in the forums.
Oh, good. Let's transition to that.
Yeah.
But I want the two of you to say something about what's at stake. Erica, you first.
It's I mean, I always feel like one of the challenges, I think, of the kind of work that we're thinking about this week is that it's easy to feel like it's mechanical or outside of what's happening in the now. And I kind of feel as though it's just the opposite. I remember when Trump got elected, it was the same exact webcast, so we were reading the same things.
Oh, it was week 9.
I could
two years
barely
ago.
function in the webcast. And it sent me into this period of time, and Jenna's work has actually been kind of a linchpin or something I keep going back to because I think she handles the tension between something that's done via chance and something that really engages with a dire problem or a crisis
Yeah.
very, very well. So I think that what's at stake is how do you make sense of the language that's being enacted around you that's really troubling, while also, I'm not sure how to put this, but I instead of posing it as a question, I guess I want to pose it as an answer to a question that I'm not sure how to ask, which is, you know, in the past year or so, I'm trying to...
Oh, we lost your audio. Go ahead. Say that again.
I've been trying to finish a book of my own that's, you know, my own work is fairly in line with the writers this week, and a couple of days ago, I found myself rereading the Osman and realizing that one of the ways I could figure out how to contend with our current situation was to look at transcripts and rip them up. So I feel like there's a huge amount at stake politically, but also personally, you know, and how you take care of yourself in a moment where you're not really sure what to do with the rhetoric around you.
Yeah.
And I think that what Jenna does is one really important and really viable way to contend with it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Erica. Anna, what's at stake?
That's such an important question. I think the thing I always come back to that helps remind me like what is vital about this work, what's important about it, why to keep reading it, is that the more familiar with language you get, the less you listen to it, right? Like next week we're going to read Mike McGee's Pledge, which I think is a great reminder of this.
The Pledge of Allegiance.
Right. His riff homophonic translation of the Pledge of Allegiance, which is a great reminder that like with a text like that that's so ingrained into the minds of so many, you're not really paying attention to what the semantic meaning is or the syntactic meaning or how the thing is actually put together. Like I remember the first time I saw the pledge written out as a full sentence, and I thought, well, that's weird. I've always
It's a weird-ass sentence.
thought it's a weird ass sentence, but I've also always thought of it as kind of this lineated thing because the pauses are so pronounced and dramatic, and everyone takes the pause at the same moment. So I actually think that to come back to Cage's thing of making language less understandable, when you make language less understandable, you pay closer attention to it. And when you rip up the transcripts, talk about white noise, transcripts from press conferences, full of platitudes, full of assurances that kind of mean nothing. Ripping them up and bombing her office with them means that you're paying attention to that language. You're in the recombination of that language. You're newly invigorated with a sense of what the words might actually mean.
Yeah.
And invited to actually participate in that process of co-creation, co-constituency, as Davey would say.
Yeah. Thank you. We're going to take, I think someone's on the phone. This will be our last call of the evening. And whatever the question is, Jason, Selena, Lily, and Josh will answer it, whatever it is. So let's see what it is. Hello, who's calling? Chris, who is it?
We have Philip Drexler calling.
Ah, Phil Drexler. Okay. Hi, Phil.
Hello, Al.
How are you this evening? Oh, Emily Harnett just joined us. Okay. Hi, Emily. You are also going to answer whatever question Phil asks. And if I...
Well, that's a delight.
Yeah.
Because I know Emily will bring something to the question.
Okay, great. How you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Okay, great. What is your question this evening?
Well, as usual, Madonna has said some things that have prompted me to wonder about some things. I agree with her that poetry is definitely a hedge against despair.
Hey, Philip?
Yeah?
Can you turn your sound down on the webcast? Because I think what we're doing is getting an echo of yourself.
No, hold on just a second. It's
Okay.
because of where I'm standing. Let me move.
Okay, either that or you've got people in the room there or something.
Yeah. Is it better now?
Yes, much better, thanks.
Okay.
Since we're short on time, I'll ask you to ask one question.
And this is the question now.
Okay.
There's been, you talked about the evolution of language. No doubt ModPo has done that. And we're at a point where things need to go further. And I don't know where that is. I agree with both of you.
Okay.
Yes, sir. The door will shut in a minute. Okay. So here's the question.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk about language. And the last comment by Anna was about meaning to a certain degree. That's the only part that I've heard tonight about meaning. So the question is, where does meaning come in? Is the answer language is meaning? And if so, what does that mean? That's the question.
Okay. I think I'm going to... Thank you so much for the question, Philip. We're going to ask you to hang up and listen to the responses. And I'm going to reframe the question a little bit. And thank you for calling and have a good evening. And I hope everything's good in Austin.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, take care. All right. So let's see if we can provide, I'm going to reframe the question. Let's see if we can provide succinct responses. So Emily, you just joined us, but we're responding to a question about meaning, and you're on also. Okay, so I'm going to reframe it. Well, so meaning making obviously takes a little bit of a turn here in week 9 because the meaning gets created by unintentionally. So what's the future of meaning? And where does meaning go from here? And is meaning all that it's cracked up to be? And so on. We talked about co-creation of meaning, which is a different kind of meaning than you were taught when you were a kid, which is say what you mean. Do you want a drink of water or do you want a ball to play with? Tell us, use your words. And co-creation is obviously different from that. Okay, Jason, take it anywhere. Then we'll go to Selena, Josh, Lily, and Emily.
Okay. First of all, meaning and language are such complex living things. They grow and live through, like you don't just have a language implanted in your brain. You learn language through exchange with others. And language is also a barrier because how do you find the perfect words to express what's in your mind? So language is always adapting itself to different minds and different experiences and growing in that way. Mm-hmm. And I think one thing I think about ModPo is that, and that I've been thinking about just what poetry is a kind of communal yoga of the mind, like a practice rather than an ongoing practice that everyone can practice. Like your pose doesn't need to be perfect. But you discover new flexibilities in your body, and you gain health and other ways of thinking about, in yoga, the movement and the body. And through poetry, you gain flexibility in language. And so in listening to political language, a familiarity with poetry allows you to pick up on a lot of the nonsense and tricks and bad things that are, or manipulations of language. So to read poems communally is to strengthen our flexibility with our relations with one another, which are primarily conducted through language. It expands the possibilities of how we can communicate with each other when political forces that be want to shut down the language and limit the words, or describe something terrible with a phrase that sounds less so. And I know I'm doing my thing, I'm going on and on, but I was really struck by in Bernadette Mayer's list of exercises. One of them is consult the thesaurus, where categories for the word include word as news, word as message, word as information, word as story, word as order or command, word as vocable, word as instruction, promise, vow, contract.
Jason, thank you. I hope someone's going to transcribe that, what you just said, because it was fucking amazing. Thank you. I'm going to ask Josh to comment next, and then you'll get the mic to Selena so she can comment. Josh, go anywhere with this.
Well, I just, I think Cage and Osman and McClough, they're pushing meaning to some pretty far out limits, and doesn't mean that it's going to be meaningless at those limits. Sometimes like the limit of meaning is the most meaningful thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes the center of meaning is the least meaningful thing.
That's right. That's totally right.
Yeah.
Right?
So we live
right smack in the middle of meaning making is stuff that really doesn't mean that much.
Yeah, exactly. And
ironic.
And we've got a ton of it lately, and it just washes over us. Whereas these rare moments of limit meanings actually will say a lot more to us.
Yeah, well put. Selena, what do you think about all this?
Sure. I actually want to go back to something we talked about earlier, because I'm more familiar with John Cage as a musician. And I think for me, coming to it from a musical background, reading this type of poetry is really amazing, because I see it as inviting the reader, sort of like with a lot of his music, is inviting the audience to participate and to find or to construct or to not find meaning in whatever they're being presented with. I think for some of us, it can be frustrating and it can be unpleasant, and you feel as if you're being forced to react and forced to find your own meaning. But I like to think of it more as you're being invited to find that meaning and to be part of the process. And I think that's what's really great about it.
Thank you. Fantastic. Lily and then Emily.
Yeah, I think in terms of where the meaning is located, it sounded almost like, I liked Philip's question, because it sounded like he was asking for almost like a physical location of where meaning is in the poetry. And I think that Jason was making a... he was making some trees at me. I think it is in the shared vocabulary or the shared, Selena's comment makes me think like shared space of performance. So like Jason said earlier, something like Writing Through Howl exists as its own poem, but it's really a companion text. And so I think like that piece, there's no reason to try and disentangle it from Howl. You should just allow them to be in a community of meaning. And so that's kind of a physical location, is somewhere in the maybe not actual physical plane, but somewhere where you're bringing Howl and Writing Through Howl next to each other, or somewhere where you're bringing 4 minutes and 33 seconds, like the audience and Cage, that physical space is where it exists not just only on a physical plane, but bringing the text in conversation with each other.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lily. Emily, what do you think of this? Uh-oh. Emily, you got to turn your mute off or something.
Erica's face.
We've got problems with. Sorry, Emily. All right, you fiddle with it. We'll
just
see.
waving.
We'll
Hi,
see.
Emily.
That's Emily. Emily's here. Emily Harnett. Okay. You fiddle with that. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go around for final words. We're going to start with Josh because he's got to catch a plane, actually. Josh, it's been so much fun having you with us today.
No,
So, what are your final thoughts? Any thoughts at all?
About anything.
About anything. Well, about this week, this work, what we're doing here.
Yeah. Reading someone like Cage or McClower or Osman, it's definitely refreshing. It's enchanting. The word anarchy is, scare is like a scare word that circulates by many different kinds of political thinkers and politicians as if it could be the worst possible thing ever. And here we have some demonstrations that it's not at all. It's very friendly. It's very pleasurable, as Cage would say.
Yeah.
And socially concerned. It's quite opposite of what it's supposedly about. And that's a great moment and window. So the next time a person says, "Oh, this is anarchy. This is mere anarchy," you can just show them little McLeod.
Like Laura Ingraham.
Exactly. So.
Yeah, that's great. Josh, thank you.
Of course.
Thanks for being with us today. Snaps for Josh Schuster. Welcome back to the Writer's House. All right, so we're going to get final words from folks who did not respond on the Phil Drexler question. So that would be Anna next. Final words.
Okay. First thing I want to say, maybe more in response to the Phil Drexler question, because it was so great, is that I think, and also responding to that really amazing thing that Selena said about that how this work is really an invitation to make meaning. And I do think that when you are at your most challenged with language or confronted with challenging language, that's when you get to participate in that process of making meaning. And I think that the thing that someone tells me means so much, right? Like the sort of Hallmark greeting card language that's like so meaningful, right? Like doesn't mean anything to me because I was not participating in making that language. Like, wouldn't you rather receive a card from someone who hand wrote it to you rather than like just picked out the card that was like the closest thing to what they think they maybe wanted to say? So that's all I wanted to say on that. The other thing I wanted to say is that unfortunately, because we had so many wonderful phone calls this week, we didn't get to the forums, and there's so many good things in the forums and the Twitter feed. There's so many good things in social media. So I just wanted to say, like, sorry we didn't get to all these great forum questions, but if you're watching this and you're interested in continuing this conversation, please go to the discussion forum for this week. There's so many good questions. Like, there's an amazing question about plagiarism that is so important to this week and next week. There's a great question about the poethical wager. Erica, maybe you want to go chat in there about the poethical wager. And all kinds of other good things. So if you're interested and want to keep this conversation going, please go there.
Fantastic. Thank you, Anna. Let's go to Erica Kaufman for a final thought, final word.
I'm excited to continue to talk about this. I have office hours tomorrow at 10, and I'm about to go and look at the poetical wager question.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Thank you, Erica, and thanks for hanging out with us. And Erica was here at the Writers' House on Monday to talk with our ModPo graduate seminar, so it was great to see her, and that was a fun conversation. Molly, final thoughts?
Yeah, Jason's beautiful comment about yoga and not having to have the pose be perfect and not having to have the poem be perfect or the reading of it made me think of this quote from the Bhagavad Gita from Krishna: "The intent on action, not on the fruits of action. Avoid attraction to the fruits and attachment to inaction." And there's a lot in yogic philosophy about doing the work for the sake of the work itself and letting go of results. And I think that, comes up in Buddhism as well. And I think sometimes for me, I can get so intimidated by the prospect of getting it wrong when we're reading poetry, when I'm reading poetry, that sometimes I just don't even try. And so when these poets involve me, the reader, in the making of the meaning and allow me to come at it with my own experience and my own background, that feels so inclusive and so special and so democratic. So I love this week.
Fantastic. Thank you, Molly. I knew you were going to pick up this analogy to yoga, which was perfect and suggestive. Yeah, give it to Molly. Dave Poplar, final thoughts?
Speaking of language and meaning, here's a fun exercise. When you find yourself in another country where you don't speak the language, you don't understand it at all, learn a curse word in that language. Practice it so you say it very well. And then just say it around people in that country. And it's so interesting when that happens because it still just sounds like you're making a noise to yourself. But the way people react to that noise, it doesn't even compute sometimes. But it's funny that there's meaning in there somewhere.
Oh my God!
It's hard to
okay, Dave, let us know. Could you do some video of that? I want to see what happens when you do that.
Yeah, I've been to Greece a lot, and I've tried that. Just hanging out at dinner with some friends and just saying it randomly. It's active.
Thanks, Dave. Emily, I think you may have gotten your sound to work. Is that the case?
Yeah, did you hear that?
Oh my God, you are so funny. Hi.
If you could only see Zach's face right now, Emily.
Yeah. Oh my God, Zach is easily embarrassed, but you really are. You're the top of his list of embarrassment making. No, they're roommates. They're literally housemates.
Computer sounds funny.
Yeah. You'd think that living with Zach, you would start to pick up on some technical know-how, but it's clearly not happening.
I think I figured out the easiest way to annoy him, and I cherish that knowledge all the same.
Take a couple minutes, Emily, and give us your thoughts on all of this, please.
Sure. I'm just thinking about that last question before my microphone interfered. What I really liked, was it his name Phil? Phil's question?
Yeah, Phil Drexler.
Yeah. He phrased it in an interesting way, which kind of suggests right, what will happen to meaning, as though meaning has kind of disappeared or starts to disappear from the poetry we look at in the later weeks of the course. And I do think sometimes it's easy to see the poetry we read here as kind of banishing meaning to the margins of literary experience. But I think on the contrary, meaning is where it's always been. And what we learn when we read this poetry is to just be more attentive to how meaning has always been produced. Meaning has always been in the encounter between a text and a person, and between a text and a group of people. Poetry just aims to make us more conscious of that. And I really like Jason's example, too, of yoga. And it reminds me of my experience teaching some of this poetry to high school students, where I always preface it by saying, okay, this is weird and it's hard, but you all know how to do this, right? You all know how to read it. It's just maybe a way of reading, exercising different muscles, but the same muscles you've always had. So this idea that meaning starts to diminish or fall out of poetry, I don't think it's quite true. It's just, if anything, putting meaning even in an even more central position in our way of understanding, and just trying to be conscious of where it comes from.
Beautifully said, as always, Emily, and I'm glad you got your audio to work. My final word is really to quote from Kristen Bush, who is a teacher of AP Language and AP Literature. I mentioned Kristen last week, but I want to read you something that she wrote about her experience teaching in her high school through ModPo. So she's at Ware County High School in what she calls deepest, most southern part of rural Georgia. You know, a lot of us who are not near Georgia have been thinking about Georgia the last couple days because there was a campaign for the governorship of Georgia that captured the imagination of a lot of people. And so Kristen Bush and her students are in what she calls the deepest, most southern part of rural Georgia. She included this in her introductory post to the ModPo forums, and she describes her students as high schoolers, the high schoolers who called my office last week. We talked about this last week. They called the office, and Anna and I talked to them.
So great.
That was so fun. So she describes a little bit about what it's like to use ModPo in this, for us, far-flung situation there in rural Georgia. This is the 5th year I have taught AP Lit and my 5th year following ModPo. When I started teaching the course, I needed help with teaching poetry in general, but especially more contemporary and experimental pieces. Fortunately, I found ModPo in the Coursera catalog. That year's class was quite small and really sharp. That meaning her class. ModPo's never been quite small. It was one of the dream classes where you don't actually teach, you just facilitate and watch the magic happen. They were able to complete pretty much the whole of ModPo. When I asked them for feedback after the AP exam, they universally said that ModPo was something that helped them on the exam and should be continued in my own course. Since then, I have continued to work through ModPo to varying degrees with each successive class. How much we get through in a year usually depends largely on the makeup of the group. We don't typically do the essays in the course because they are not exactly like the poetry prompt on the AP exam, to say the least. As such, I sub in AP Lit prompts for the written portions. We are in a very rural, very conservative area, so I tend to avoid the more controversial poems for everyone's comfort and for the sake of my job. I look forward to corresponding with you and hearing any suggestions you have on teaching the course. Thank you again for taking the time to talk to my students. I don't know what to say other than that, Kristen Bush, you're doing great work. I can't believe we've connected. When I started at the University of Pennsylvania 34 years ago, I never thought that I would have a teaching connection, a teaching relationship to a teacher teaching literature in Ware County High School in rural Georgia. I trust you that you are using the ModPo materials appropriately. I would never, ever, ever judge you for not teaching certain things that are going to cause trouble there, because I have a feeling that some of the stuff that seems not overtly political, let's say a Laureen Niedecker poem, is going to do the ModPo magic with and for your students anyway. So we're signing off tonight in week 10. When we come back in week 9. When we come back for week 10, we're going to be talking about conceptualist poetry. And then the symposium mode of ModPo is done. After that, all the way to the beginning of next September 2019, we will go into our slow po mode. And really cool things are going to happen. The forums are still there. People are still there. There's less sort of top-down management of the site, fewer emails, fewer messages from me. But a lot of cool things happen. You don't have to finish the course to recall Willard's comments at the beginning. You don't even have to be a teacher with your students in the course. You can just hang out with us Our hope is to do what we said today, which is to create an excuse for everybody to climb in, as Josh said, to the little temporary utopia of the poems, and then to string them all together and see if you can have a kind of extended utopian experience. And that's all we're aiming for. I think after year 2 or 3, we claimed that ModPo was sort of going to remake the world. I remember the guy from Israel who kept calling us, Moshe. Moshe kept calling us and saying, "You are making it possible for there to be peace in the world." Well, I mean, 7 years later, there's no more peace. In fact, probably less of it. But we're still here because we actually believe that these poems can do what Jason said they can do. They can make you more flexible. They can make you more supple in the way you think. And maybe your students can take advantage of it too and become more flexible. Far off in a rural conservative area or right here in the heart of Philadelphia, wherever you are. Anyway, we love all of you. Thank you to Joyce, Sharon, Philip, Mandana for calling, to Molly, Dave, Erica, Emily for hanging out, to Anna, as always, who is ModPo's coordinator, who does magical work in doing this. Yes, do you accept that compliment?
Thank you.
It's true. To Selena, to Jason, to Adelaide, who managed the camera perfectly, even so, like Zach didn't once lurch for the camera to correct your camera shots. And to Zach and Chris, who do miracles. Absolutely stunning. Chris, you've got a mic near you. Say something.
Yes, I do have a mic near me. I can say that yesterday, Zach and I spent the entire afternoon looking at our new equipment, and we're really psyched for what we have coming down in the pipeline. So
yeah.
I think we should reveal to the people watching this, anybody who's still watching, that when we get this new equipment in this room, it looks like the room's finished, but it's not. And when we get the new equipment, we're going to be so excited about the webcast capabilities that we're probably going to call some off-season Slowpo webcasts just to try out some new things, and so stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
So thanks, Chris and Zach, and we'll see you a week from tonight. Next week's Week 10 webcast will be at 8 p.m. Philadelphia time, so it's a late one for us. And then Final Words webcast will take place on Monday, November 19th, at 10:30 a.m. We hope some people will make the trip to Philadelphia to hang out with us that day. So until next week, we will see you in the forums. Have a good night, and thanks a lot.